What? You want to fight crime? Let's get dangerous.
And yes, it is showtime, and I don't know why it's got me on the small screen, but here we go. There we are. It's another Saturday, and welcome to another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. I'm your host, Joe D. McPhee here, and tonight's topic is a little bit different, a little bit on the more production side of things here. So if you ever want to know how comics should be produced and the method behind the madness of why when you get one issue done, you just don't automatically jump out there, stay tuned here. But nevertheless, we got the business end of things to take care of here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and tell people that Stupid O'Clock happens in our second hour of the show here at 11 p.m. Eastern. Then that is followed up by Last Man Standing at 1 a.m. Eastern. Then you get that respite until Monday morning until you have Nicholas Tucker and Nevermind the Furthermore. And don't forget about Comic Book Spectrum. That will be happening in 2 weeks, not next week, but in 2 weeks. Because why? Next week is Thanksgiving, and we don't have we don't have no show on Thanksgiving. But the week after, we will be right back at it here, talking about geek culture and comic book related stuff like we always do here. So, without further ado, we're at that favorite portion that a lot of people love on this show, which is new comic book pickups for the week here. It is pre-recorded, so let's get at it. Okay, here we go with new comic book pickups for the week here. Got a very, very small stack that we're going to deal with here. We're going to start off with Ghost number 23. There we go. Then we got from volume 2 of Dawn, issue number 2, issue number 3, and then from the Return of the Goddess series, we got issue number 2 and issue number 3. Then we got the variant version of the Young Animals version of Doom Patrol. I believe this is Doom Patrol Volume 5, I believe. Then we're going to end out new comic book pickups for the week with New Mutants number 6. New Mutants number 20. And New Mutants number 75. And like always, if there's more books that comes in before the beginning of the show, we would do that live. But for right now, we're going to toss it back to the studio. And there you have it. That is new comic book pickups for the week. And we do have a question to say, why is your phone TikTok shape? That's because of StreamYard. StreamYard now added this whole thing about if you watch it on the phone, it formats it for a phone. So it puts it in like that TikTok shape as opposed to viewing it normally on YouTube the regular way. So that's if I could say, it's a added unwanted feature more so than anything else here. See, that's what I don't know. I don't know what's going on here, but that's something that StreamYard is doing with the formatting for the phones and everything. You should be in regular format on a PC. If not, let me go ahead and take a look at this real quick here. I'm going to open up another tab to see what's going on here. It's not that I don't believe you, it's just more along the lines that is news to me here. But my understanding is that they did this weird formatting for the phones here, and that's causing a major to do. So give me 1 second here, and we're going to discover it ourselves to see what's really happening here. It looks normal on my laptop here, so I'm not certain what's going on here. So I got a little bit of a delay, but it formats normally on my regular laptop here. So I'm not certain why it's doing that there if you're not watching it on a phone here. No, I agree. I agree. It's probably something that StreamYard did just to separate the two. I don't know why all of a sudden it went to the phone format here, but the phone formatting does do that. I just don't know and just don't know why it's doing that. But it's a new feature that they're trying to do to make certain that people could broadcast in the right format based upon what device that they have here. So it's weird. It's just so weird here. But nevertheless, we're going to forego the accountability and updates because the topic is pretty much self-explanatory here. You know, whenever you feel like you're getting something accomplished, you still feel like you're always behind here. And it's just one of those things about production and having a set schedule and everything, because sometimes with doing a show like this, you want to constantly talk about what's the goings on in the community more so than what you're doing project wise and everything. And especially since this show is really more about letting people know about what I'm doing as well as things that's going on in the comic book industry as far as the creative side. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's happening now as far as people who are doing the investment side talking about how all of these, if I could say, modern keys are cooling off and everything. And I'm up here like, no, y'all overinflated them in the very beginning, and now you're, reaping the detriments from making that bubble pop so early. But I'm going to forego that because of a couple of things that I said a couple of weeks ago, because it's like I took a week off of actually doing comic book work because of all the other stuff dealing with life and everything to that magnitude. So the update this week is more along the lines now is that I got 3 issues of a brand new series ready to go to editing. So if Elaine is out there and she's watching here, she might get that, phone call or that email or that knock on the door and be like, hey, I got 3 issues ready. Let's, figure out a time and place where you could actually start working on this, where we can have at least a release of issue number 1 by C2E2. And yes, I'm not going to go to crowdfunding with this series, even though I could. But what I have learned and what I have learned with crowdfunding and everything is if you don't have an audience that is fully into crowdfunding, it is 30 to 60 days worth of hell. And when I say 30 to 60 days worth of hell, we're talking about marketing, and more marketing and more marketing. And you're probably going to end up turning people off to your work than onto your work because you're beating the drum so much and so loud that people are going to be like, oh, he's still talking about his book again. He's still talking about his book. I'm so tired of talking about the new book. But the best way to always get people interested in your work is small doses here and there. Just like I've been, showing you guys graphics and stuff to that magnitude here. So tonight, for the very first time, I'm going to do something a little bit different here. Trying to see what's doing. Yeah, I'm going to do something a little bit different. And that little bit different is going to be this right here. If it will. Oh, that's because I have to remove that first, and then I can add that. So as I was saying, I did the first 3 issues here. So we got issue number 1. This is probably going to be the one that's going to be available at C2E2. It is an adult book. So if I skip over certain graphics and everything, there's a reason for that, because I can't really do whatever. So that's issue number 1. Issue number 1 is a 28-page interior. It is an anthological book, meaning that it is made up of several different stories being concurrent, running all at the same time, which kind of introduces the aspect of the overall topic. And I will talk to you guys more about what the book is more about here in a second. There's issue number 2, all ready to go. Like I said, I'm going to skirt through a lot of the stuff. I can't really show a lot of the more adult stuff here. But as you can see, it is ready to go. And what I just finished this evening, issue number 3. So we're ready to go. We're ready to go. We're ready to kind of launch this first new series. And this would be my first new series in about 8 years. So it's a different type of aspect of launching a brand new series as opposed to coming out with the next issue of a series that you already know. But the major thing here is this. For those who don't know what Legends of the Giantess Slayer is, it was my attempt to get people more into the fact that as much as we talk about, legends, when we think about mythology and legends, especially when it comes to fantasy aspects of it. When we think about giants, we think more about males. It's like there's a lot of things about male giants, but not a lot about females. It's like, what lores are there out there about females other than, things like Gaia, Gaia and a couple others that, are like, we can only name like a handful. So what I did here with Legends of the Giantess Slayer is pretty much indulge on the myths and even created some to kind of give people what they want. There's a lot of people who are into macrophilia. And so I'm pretty much doing an adult book that kind of focuses around more about that, more so than anything, really focusing on females than anything else. So I've already started the body work for the actual Legends story, which is the actual college-like lecture that deals with the different related topics within macrophilia. So the next 2 that I'm planning to do, as far as that 8-page chapters that's coming up, one is going to be on Vor, and the other one is going to be on how all Amazons are not giantesses and all giantesses are not Amazons. So it's been an interesting road, because all the side stories and everything are like new and different for me, because I'm writing really outside of my normal genre, which is capes and types, which is more superhero type stuff here. I can write more cop thriller type stuff like I do with Amazonia, but the pro wrestling stuff is stuff that I had to actually study, and I gotten better at writing the pro wrestling stuff. But I'm more used to writing capes and types. Have I written fantasy before? Here and there for other people, but nothing that was real big that I made any money off of, other than a script here and a script there for pretty much the same type of purpose like Legends of the Giant Slayer is. It was more for an anthological book or an anthological series of stories, but nothing, that is an ongoing title like this one is going to be. So this is really my first foray in 100% adult level comics. Hence, if you notice, all the books do have adults only must be 18 or older to buy. And yes, it will have not safe for work covers when we do release it here. But the major thing here is I didn't do issue number 1 by itself. Issue number 1 has been done for maybe about like a year and a half. My mindset when it comes to producing books and before we launch a title is get anywhere between 3 to 5 issues done. Because if people like that first issue, you try not to keep them waiting for issue number 2. I got lucky with Amazonia when I came out with issue number 1 because I threw it out there, willy-nilly, not knowing what I know now as far as publishing. People started to like it. People was asking for issue number 2. It took me almost a full another year and a half to get issue number 2 out. Then after I got issue 2 out, I got issue 3 6 months later. So it kind of got me into the flow when I started doing AWF. I didn't launch AWF until we was working on the 3rd issue. And now with Primetime Saturday Night, I believe I launched that in the middle of creating issue number 2. And now we're launching Legends of the Giant Slayer when I'm working on issue 4. So we're going to get this here. Yeah, it's going to be one of those books that I have to cover up or display backwards. And the reason why I could say display backwards is the back cover, and I'm going to use issue number 2 as an example. The back cover is pretty safe. It just words on there and it pretty much states what the book is and how it and everything is. And then, issue number 2, I think we have advertisements for our other series because this one was 30. Was a 30-page interior, so it's 30 pages interior with 3 ads. But usually when I'm at comic book conventions, especially if I have not safe for work covers, I have to display them backwards. So that means the back cover is very, very important as far as letting people know what they're looking at. So again, getting back into the production aspect of things here, if you don't have graphics on the back of it or not using the back cover as advertisement, it is always good to give some type of summary of what is actually happening in that issue. That way, when people come up to your table or ask like, well, what this book is or why is the issue showing the back cover, you could tell them it's a not safe for work cover. We can't display it based upon convention rules, but at least people will know what they're looking at. If they were interested in seeing the not safe for work cover, they can show you some ID and then you can open up the book, flip it over for them to see what they want. So that's more along the lines of the education behind that here. But I'm kind of glad that I finally got these 3 issues done in this aspect because it opened up the door for me to be more free with getting issue 6 of Primetime Saturday Night done and Amazonia number 8, and maybe inspiration to finally do issue 5 of AWF. But why do I also feel like I'm so far behind? Because the other stuff is not done. It feels like once I catch up on one project, the other projects are suffering. And by the time I catch up with the other projects, now I have to come back and catch up with something else. And it just seems like a never-ending cycle. Now, in addition to that, keeping up with the ongoings of what's coming out new from other companies, keeping up with the pulse of collecting, what people are collecting now, what investors are saying is going to be speculated and all this other stuff, and trying to be that voice of reason. it takes a lot out of you. And then you add family, friends, and work and other happenstance. You have a full menagerie of things that can keep you away from doing what you love. It does get a little bit depressing, you know, when you get to the point where it's like you wake up and you finally feel like, yeah, I finished this and I finished that and I finished that. And then you sit back and think about it. It's like, but all this other stuff is not accomplished. You feel overwhelmed. That overwhelmed feeling is going to be more and more natural, but the way that you look at it and the way that you respond to it is going to be key. If you feel overwhelmed and let it overwhelm you, it did its job. But if you look at it as slow and steady wins the race and pace yourself, you don't have to be the fastest person out there. You just have to be the best person out there. And what I mean by the best person, you always putting your best foot forward. You're putting your best work out there. You're not up here trying to cut corners on things here. As long as you constantly give that quality over and over and over and over again, you're going to be okay. People are going to like what you do and appreciate the fact that they might have to wait a little bit later. Now, I already know the question here, because 3 issues are done. People are going to be up here. It's like, so that does that mean it's like you're going to have issue 1 launch at C2E2, and then a month later you're going to have issue 2, a month later issue 3? Probably not. We're going to space them out as far as when we release them and everything. We might just have all 3 in the CGC Online Studio store for people to buy. But as far as actual release to the general public, when we get them printed up and start selling them either through the store or at conventions, there's going to be kind of like a lag. It's going to be a staggered lag for it here, because, again, we have to see how well people take to this particular title first before we just go balls to the walls with everything. Just like with Primetime Saturday Night. Primetime Saturday Night was something that we threw out there because people complain about AWF not having enough wrestling. We did Primetime Saturday Night, and boy, did we get feedback about this is what we wanted. Now I got a good sister book for AWF, and AWF has been kind of suffering because people want to see the pro wrestling. They're not really concerned about what's going on behind the scenes as much here. So it kind of gave me an out to slow down the process for AWF, but it does not mean that I don't work on it. And that's, like I said, as many times you feel like you're accomplishing things. Like, we're at issue number 6 for Primetime Saturday Night, but we still haven't released issue 5 for AWF. So we already surpassed the number of issues already. The sister book is doing better than the parent book. And then we still got keep Amazonia going, knowing good and well I got 2 more story arcs in me that I want to get out there for people to start really loving this series here. Because once we get past the homecoming story arc, we still have her heritage story arc. And the one thing that I've been hinting about that's going to happen in Angel Falls here, there is going to be a scientific unit that's coming. And it's going to be something that is unique. And I like how everything is going to be end up in development by the time we get into that, because the storytelling is going to lead into a lot of the stuff that's going on here. A lot of the characters that is being used now in the first story arc is going to play more of a pivotal role by the time we get to the 3rd story arc. So Amazonia, like I said, I have planned for it to be an ongoing series here. Now, after the 3rd story arc, I don't know one way or the other where the story is going to go to, but it's going to be interesting, because now with everything that's happening today in Angel Falls for the Amazonia series, that 3rd story arc is going to be awesome because the city needs what's about to come down. So it's one of those things that I am looking forward to and everything here. So, in a nutshell, that is really why a lot of times, if you ever hang out with comic book creators and you actually talk to like writers, and the writers are like, "Oh, I can't really talk to you so much." It's like, well, what does this writer does when he's at a convention? If he's not at his table, 9 times out of 10, he's probably back in his hotel room writing away with a whole bunch of stuff because they got deadlines and stuff too. Same thing with some artists. Some artists, they still got to draw and hit some type of deadlines and everything, or do some commission work that they were commissioned for at the show. It's a constant grind. It's a constant work ethic that you have to keep, to keep everything going and keep everything in balance here. Is there fun to be had? Yeah, there's fun to be had, but it's a different type of aspect of fun when you're on the other side of the table. When you're the one producing the work, the fun comes from the camaraderie that you have for your fellow creator more so than anything else. But yet you're still working, you're still spending the long hours and everything. People keep forgetting. It's like it's like even with C2E2. Let's take C2E2 for example. I still haven't missed this from the Death Small Press Publisher. I would get off the showroom floor about it's like the showroom closed about 7. I get back here to the studio about 8:30, and I'm right here talking to you guys at 9, telling you what's been going on and how things are going and everything to that magnitude. And that doesn't even take into consideration if I have any commissions that I still have to work on or draw on or color. Those are long nights. It is what it is. And it's not something that I'm up here. It's like, oh, woe is me. I'm just up here. It's like, no, that's just the nature of the business. That's just the way that it is. I'm happy to do these shows during conventions. Matter of fact, every convention that I did, I had done a show one way or the other. Because I'm thinking about when I did Keystone, I did one from the hotel room. San Diego, yeah, San Diego, I communicated in some form or some fashion. So yeah, we still do shows and everything, whether it be off of the phone or through the regular setup that I have through the laptop. We still do from the desk of a small press publisher. Those are part of the things about doing shows and everything. It's part of being in that creative sphere and making certain that people know what's going on here. Now, the other aspect is that it's hard to keep up with the ongoings of other people's work, such as, you know, I did a review of Sleeping Betty, but I still got all of these Birds of Prey to read here. I just did the reviews for Fire and Ice, the first 2 issues of Fire and Ice when Hell Freezes Over. If you missed that on from Comic Book Spectrum, you missed it. But things like that comes up. Talking about what other people are putting out there as far as investment advice or comic book collecting as a whole, whether I agree or disagree with it. All of that editorial commentary takes time and effort to formulate and to make into a nugget of joy for other people to have to come out here and watch on the YouTubes here, or whether it be via Facebook or whether it be via Twitch or whatever means that you watch the show from. It's not an easy task. I mean, yeah, it's not too hard to set up a camera and go for what you know here, but it's a difference to be if I could say, a educated source of content as opposed to somebody that's coming out here with opinion. You just have to know what you know and research everything that you're doing here. And with that being said, it does leave that nagging feeling that you're still falling behind when somebody else is talking about how, oh, the price of Thor #1, and we're talking about Jane Foster Thor #1, has fallen like 87%. and they're up here. It's like, woe is me. Well, it's like, woe is me. This because this book was used to be up here, and now it's down there. It's not the time to really pay attention to it and this, that, and the other. It's like, and I'm sitting back like, no. People like you propped up that book before it was time. At the height of its popularity, yeah, the book skyrocketed because you made it skyrocket. However, the reason why it cooled off is because the series has came and gone and went. Jane Foster is no longer a Thor. She's a Valkyrie now. So because she's a Valkyrie, the book is going to fall. It's the value of it is not going to have the same impact. And besides, there's not too much of a demand for it like it was. And again, people keep forgetting about what makes something mainstream. You guys out there make something mainstream. It's not the company that produces it. It's you, the readers, the people who buy the books, the people who love reading the stuff. You make something mainstream because you're the ones that talking about it. The company could talk about it until they're blue in the face because of the simple fact that it's advertising. When you talk about it, it's making it mainstream. It's making it a point that you're saying either you like it, you hate it, or you're indifferent. But because you're talking about it and getting out to more and more people in the general public, you're making it mainstream. So that's one of the reasons why I keep saying, to the greater degree, we as content creators have to make that fine line between being educated content creators or influencers. If you go the influencer route, just be careful because you can lead people astray just from the simple fact of whatever clout that you may have. And I know people pick on certain content creators for certain things. I know how people pick on Comic Tom. I know how people pick on Bryce Comics and Mint Hunter Comics and all these other Swaggle Hoss and all these other people who primarily deal with the investment side of things here. But at the same time, a lot of those, I can't say so much about Comic Tom, but a lot of the others do pay attention and do have a sense of ethics behind what they put out there as far as being that fine line between educating people on what is accurate and true as opposed to influencing people to buy certain things here. And granted, I'm talking tongue in cheek about Comic Con because Comic Con still talks about, Dark Art #1 is what people should invest in right now because it is the wave of the future. And I'm up here like, maybe in about another 20 years or 30 years. Yeah, because once those numbers dwindle down for the number of copies that are out there that's still in full tag, yeah, I get it. But not right now. The same thing with a lot of the so-called modern speculations of books that they're talking about that's cooling off, that's going down in price here. But at the same time, I'm up here, it's like I still see the same types of books always being brought up and talked about and over speculated for the wrong reasons here. And I'm not going to call out people who overspec them, but I'm going to call out the titles and the issues like Amazing Spider-Man 300. There's more than enough issues out there to not have the overinflated price point for them. Now, mind you, because we have too many people influencing about the 9.8, yeah, I can see the 9.8 being at a certain, price point, but average copy really shouldn't have been over. It shouldn't be over $200. It's just hard. It's just really hard to see that. I mean, I grew up in a day where Giant Size X-Men 1 was a hard to get book, and one of my friends was able to get one for the low price of $80. And this was back in the early 2000s. And we see there was another boom in price. If he would have gone and got that Giant Size X-Men 1 graded and it came back at least a 6.0 or better, that's serious money now. Very serious money. Now, the problem here is now all of a sudden there's been like a kind of like a little bit of a comic book boom with that one, because, and I say a comic book boom because there's more issues that's now in circulation now. People found more issues of it. Just like I also read another story that there was a warehouse find with a lot of modern books, and a lot of key issues were in that warehouse find. And you want to know what happens when that happens? Because the amount of availability goes up, the price starts to drop again. Because again, when there's more issues introduced into the market and the demand is met, that means the price drops. So that's one of the reasons why I always caution people about modern speculation. This is one of the reasons why they do so many ratio variants now. Because it's not about the number of copies of issue number 1 that is out there. They're really they're heading their bets on people following covers more so than anything else. And I've been saying this for the longest about variant covers. It's not the fact that issue number 1 costs a lot of money with all of these newer series. It's more along the lines that they're tricking the average reader to figure out which one of these covers is going to be more popular than the other. That's the one that's going to get speculated on the most, and that's the one that's going to be worth the most in the first 5 to 10 years. After that, all bets are off because of the manufactured scarcity. That 1 in 100 is going to end up being the tougher get and the more valuable book, period. But in the very beginning, it's anybody's guess here. But because of manufacturer scarcity, that's where everything is going. And it's kind of sad that it's going that way. And the only reason I'm talking about it in this aspect here, because me being a comic book publisher, I can manufacture that same type of scarcity with covers for number 1 issues, number 2 issues, number 3 issues in the same aspect. And at the same time, could expect the same yield after 20, 30 years. It's a marketing game that they're playing with your dollars. So, for them to get $100, $150, $200 out of you for that 1 in 100 up front, where the local comic book store, the distributor, and the publisher all gets their money up front, you won't see equitable value for what you paid for until 30 years from now, maybe 40 years from now. And that's if the book survives a popularity uptick, downtick, and a plateau. Because there's a lot of books that was very popular when they were out. One of the series that I'm looking for right now, Body Bags, was very popular when it came out. It was a very short run book. And when I say short run, not a lot of issues of it was printed. But as of right now, it's a hard book to find, and it's not as popular. And because it's not as popular, it's still within that reasonable aspect of buying. But because it was so many issues printed of it, it also drives up the price too. I could say the same thing about The Crow. very popular back in the early 2000s. Now, not so much. It does have a cult following, but not so much as far as a mainstream popularity where anybody and everybody is talking about it like it was a Batman, like a Batman issue. Not the same. But because it was so low volume as far as printings of these issues, that price goes up a bit. But think, if all of a sudden that popularity for the Crow comes back and people start reflecting about it, or there was like a brand new Crow movie that just got everybody, gasping for air and everything to that magnitude, and people started to remember. I was like, oh, there was a comic book, and it was based in a lot of stuff, and comic book people like us started talking about, oh, this was like a one-to-one to the comic book, and people take enough interest in it. That popularity could make those issues boom again to match the investment that you put in. But like I said, it has to go through the initial popularity, the initial downcline, and then the plateau. After it reached a plateau or two, then you could kind of gauge the true speculation on it. I know the recent Crow movie tanked. Yeah, I know the recent Crow movie tanked. So that's the reason why I kind of saying it the way that I am. It had to be something brand new to bring people back, because the new Crow movie really didn't do justice to the source material. It's kind of like the conversation that we had in Comic Book Spectrum Thursday dealing with Wonder Woman 84. And that was an interesting conversation nonetheless. And shout outs to everybody that was in that chat for Comic Book Spectrum. I greatly appreciate the conversation, and I enjoy that type of stuff, and we need to do it more often. But saying all that to say is that, like the Marvel Comics Guide to Comic Book Collecting, true speculation is based upon where you see the popularity of that book going, or that title going. The only reason why Amazing Spider-Man 300 is still in 4-digit territory is because people are just willing to pay that money just for the simple fact to own one, knowing good and well that there's more than enough copies around. But because they're still chasing that dream of the 9/8, it is what it is. I mean, I could name a whole bunch of books that I put in that same category. Venom 1, or I should say Venom Lethal Protector #1 is another one. With as many copies that are there out there, everybody's still chasing that 9/8, and people are still willing to pay that 9/8 price, despite the fact that it doesn't make sense. Now, is it really the fact that you're chasing the 9/8, or is it really more so that people just don't want to chase things in the wild anymore? That's a good question to ask to everybody that's out there that's a comic book fan. Have people given up chasing things in the wild again? And the reason I bring it up in that aspect here is because when you really look at the market now, everybody keeps saying that it's a renaissance for more so now for the small press and independent publishers out there. I kind of see it, but also at the same time, we're all at war with one another for the amount of eyes seeing our project. A lot of us still feels that crowdfunding is the way to go. Other us, we're putting our best foot forward with whatever money that we have to put towards our own projects. But yet, at the same time, not too many distributors are coming to us. That's the key thing. for the amount of books that's going out to Kickstarter. And let me put it this way to people, and I really want people to think about it and really gauge it in the way that I'm about to present it here. When you think about crowdfunding, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Fund My Comic, you got a lot of different independent small press publishers putting their works out there. At the same time, you got a lot of the mid-major and major publishers also going out there with these pet projects of theirs, doing the exact same thing, hoping to garner an audience. Now, I know I've been on different shows where they're up here talking about, it's like, well, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? This, that, and the other. Not really worry about, is it that a good thing, bad thing, or does it hurt the small guy, or does it help the little guy build his or her audience? But the question that I always think about when it comes to crowdfunding is that usually you're bringing your own crowd to that platform and hoping that the crowd or the audience that you have is loud enough and vocal enough to grab the ear of somebody else who may not know who you are. So when I see, like one of the crowdfunding campaigns that I wanted to invest in, but I couldn't because I'm just not willing to put that type of money down for it, was SWAT Kats. SWAT Kats came out with a new book. I believe it's coming out via Dynamite. I believe Dynamite Entertainment is doing, finally putting SWAT Kats in comic book form. The minimal entry to get in, I believe, was $60 something. And that's before, taxes and shipping. A lot of times a $60 investment like that to me would have been, 4 or 5 other books of from where I go to my local, I should say my local comic book shop, because I got to pull this, somewhere at a local comic shop outside of my states here. So that's 4 or 5 comics that I'm getting from them versus this one very narrow, very specific title where I'm getting, barely one, maybe 1 or 2 issues of that series and tchotchkes, where I could get 4 or 5 of books of stuff that I know, love, and can collect here. And it's kind of like, are you really getting your biggest bang for the buck at that point? And then on top of that, as a buyer of something like that, are you really buying it because of being in that fandom? And does that fandom move outside of that crowdfunding platform? Meaning that if I spent $60 over here on the Kickstarter, and then all of a sudden it shows up in Penguin distributors, I might as well wait. I could wait. I might have to pay a little bit more of a markup if I got it through my local comic book shop. But at least I would get a better, cheaper deal for just the issue by itself than the packages that they offer over there on the crowdfunding campaign. And that's kind of like the thing that makes me wonder. Like I said before, the audience for crowdfunding is really more of an investment crowd. You have to think of crowdfunding like an escrow account for the creators. Again, those platforms primarily state that they are not responsible to making sure that any creator comes out with what they promised here. It is an investment. Now, they do hold some creators' feet to the fire to prove that things are in the works. But if the project does not come out on time, if the project does not ever come out, it's nothing that they can do. So that's kind of the risk that you take here. Now, again, companies like Dynamite and Boom, they have come through a lot of times. That's not the issue here. But a lot of the smaller guys, we do have a lot of problems with getting our shipping done, getting our prints or our books in a timely fashion, making certain that the quality is there before we even shipped out to you. So there's a lot of extra things that we have to go through just for maybe, and other people might have higher price points than anything else as far as profit is concerned. But if your price point is not making you, anywhere between $20 to $100 per, if I could say, how do we used to call it, per backing, is it really worth the time and effort? I'm not saying don't ever do crowdfunding, but crowdfunding is a lot of work. And you have to be diligent, and you have to be constantly building your audience. Because if you're not building your audience for that platform that you're using, you're really putting yourself in a position to be dead in the water. But the concept that I really want people to really get from this is the audience that you're building. If your audience is one that is more focused on getting your stuff at conventions, coming through your website and everything, crowdfunding may not be 100% for you. But if you got that ravenous crowd, audience and crowd that just wherever you go, they're there, why not? It'd be beneficial. And that's kind of like where things are at as of right now, with, like I said, feeling like you're always a step behind is never a good thing, because once you start focusing on one thing, it feels like something else is about to get ready to fall down. It's like that old saying about spinning the plates. You get one plate spinning really, really, really good, and here's the other one that's about to get ready to fall over that needs your attention next. And it's hard to keep everything spinning concurrently. And that's the worst feeling there is as far as being a creator. And one of the worst feelings that you could have, whether it be coming up with brand new content for your YouTube channels or for whatever, social media that you use here, whether it be for the actual books that you produce, whether it be for the actual artwork that you used to creating, it's a lot of plates that's spinning all at one given time here. And this is not even taking consideration of some of the administrative stuff here. Like, for example, I still got to file for my corporate meetings for the year. So my lawyer just sent me papers and everything, and I'm trying to get that done by December. Pay him and get that paperwork done and everything before I could go into 2026, not worrying about the state of Illinois seeing the corporation being in bad standing. There's a lot of things that comes into play, keeping all those plates spinning and everything. And if one little thing falls out, it is what it is. And there's errors like I'm out and about. There we go. Yeah, pre-Thanksgiving. Well, put it this way: I'll be here the weekend of Thanksgiving. So there is going to be a Saturday show, but there's not going to be one Thursday. So Thursday we're going to be talking about, after our bellies are full with Thanksgiving dinner and after surviving Black Friday, what I'm going to be talking about? Small business. Small Business Saturday. Small Business Saturday before we get to Cyber Monday. And the reason why Small Business Saturday is so important at this time of the year is because of the simple fact that it helps us get ready for all the tax stuff that we got to do by March. You know, sales at the end of the year is very, very key for us small guys. It really is. Yep, and Parallax is say hi to Aaron, but that's the key thing. Taxes and stuff, it's very key. And we have to pay sale tax. We have to pay all these different taxes. I know sale tax have to be done by the end of January, and then corporate taxes is normally in March, no later than March 15th. That's a lot of stuff. Like I said, it's a lot of space, you know, place to be spending. A lot of things where it's like, okay, I got issue number 4 done. Now I have to take time out to, you know, to make certain that the corporate taxes are done. If I'm taking time to do the corporate taxes, guess what? I can't draw Amazonia number 8. And people are going to be like, well, why don't you have an accountant to do that? Well, I have to make money somewhere to have an accountant to do X, Y, and Z. So it's a lot of plates. It's not easy. It's not easy. And for those who think it's easy to run a company, think again. Unless you got a lot of people who you trust and have earned your trust and have been trustworthy enough and been on top of their jobs and everything, I applaud you. But if you don't have that, you're kind of like a one-man army like I am, you have no other choice but to stay on top of things. You have no other choice but trying to keep those plates spinning, trying to keep things above board, trying to keep things scheduled the way that it needs to be scheduled. And this is, like I said, and this is in addition to living life. You still got to make time to play video games with friends and family. You got to make time for the love interest for your life here, whether it be male, female, or whoever you fall in love with. You got to make time for even yourself to take care of your own upkeep and everything to that magnitude. Life happens, but you have to keep these plates spinning. Yeah, like Marvel Rivals here, with people lagging just to win, and people disconnecting on your team, and now you're down 2 players, and you have to figure out the best way to make it work without them. You know, things like that. But all of that is about life. Life is about the whole overall journey. And there's going to be things that suck. It's like not everybody, you know, likes getting up and doing the 9 to 5 and working for somebody else. But it's a living. Now, it may work out for people who, you know, for their whole entire life. And then there's some people that would do it all the way up to the point where something bigger and better comes along. But as long as you're moving towards that ultimate goal of what you're setting yourself up for, and like in my case, I'm moving towards that goal once I'm retired from my 9 to 5, that CGC Studios could be self-sustaining, where I work for myself. I don't have to be stressed out about bills and stuff because I have a pension coming in. I can work on being creative, work on a set time schedule with whatever artists, writers, and editors I need to work with, and come out with content and get to that ultimate goal where I hit issue number 13 or issue number 14 of Amazonia or AWF and Primetime Saturday Night and Legends of the Giant Slayer, where at that point I could hit any distributor at that point and ask, okay, what do I need to do to be distributed by you guys here? Because at that point, I have enough issues in the tank to be like, we're ready to go into comic book stores. Even if we have to make new covers and do whatever we got to do, we have at least a year worth of content where we don't have to struggle. And with having that year's worth of books here, we could now move towards getting that next year and that year after that and the year after that. It might have to move a little bit faster, or we might have to slow things down and make the books like quarterlies. but at least we got enough books out there where the only thing that a distributor could say is that we're like, we don't like this particular title, or we don't like the content of that. They can't say anything else as far as not enough available, this, that, and the other. You don't have the audience and all this other stuff, because we made it that far. We made it that far on our own. That's business level planning. A lot of times people want to get that distributor right off the bat after they get like their second issue done. But you don't think about how long did it take for you to get that second issue done? How long is it going to take to get that third issue ready? Because the way that these distributors offer books is on a monthly basis. So if they're selling issue number 1 month, now you get a purchase order for, let's say, 5,000 copies. You have to have that 5,000 copy money right there in the bank, right then and there. Produce those 5,000 copies, send it over to the distributor, and you're probably not going to receive your check for that 5,000 copies. But here comes another purchase order for another 5,000 of issue number 2. Then what are you going to do about that if you don't have everything in-house ready? It's a lot of stuff to really think about. It's really a lot of financial and planning that has to go into it. And a lot of people go into it too fast, too early. And then other people don't go into it at all. Now, it would be nice to set up all of these transactions where comic book stores come to you and you get rid of the middleman and you can actually make more money that way. But at the same time, not every comic book store likes to have 15 billion places that they have to call up to buy books. That's the nature of things here. So you have to get in where you're fit in. That's one of the reasons why I've been so enamored with digital distribution here, just to get an idea of how rigid and strict it could be. Digital distribution is not as strict, and there are issues that I haven't put out there as of yet of some of the series that we do have. I believe that issue 7 is not of Amazonia is not out there on digital format as of yet. Prime Time Saturday Night 4 and 5 is not out there as of yet, because again, I haven't seen an influx of people buying into the other issues to, constantly put the stuff out there. But you have to think about it logically. You have to look at those numbers. It's not self-sabotaging because we have it out there. We have it out there on our website. You could buy directly from us, PDFs directly from us digitally. And we have people to do that. But the key thing here is to build up that audience where they can follow you wherever you go. And that's the major thing here. And that's the key thing with all of this here. But like I said, you're always going to have that nagging feeling that you're behind, because there's going to be 1 or 2 places that's about to get ready to fall over while you're spinning the rest of them. Is it a good feeling? Never at all. But as long as you are putting your best foot forward, you have nothing to worry about. You do what you can. You learn from those lessons when things do fall apart, and you put yourself in a better position to keep it from happening. Now, like I said, with not doing crowdfunding over the last 2 years, did I put myself in a good position to do another crowdfunding campaign? No. Reason being is because I haven't been doing a lot of crowdfunding campaigns. I haven't been really hitting the mailing list as hard as I used to. And usually when I do the mailing list, I usually talk more about the projects that we actually doing behind the scenes here. Show people, hey, we got new episodes of From the Desk of the Small Press Publisher up, and more stuff about Comic Book Spectrum and the unique things that we do as a whole for people and collectors. We're not talking about crowdfunding campaigns over and over and over again, talking about give us money, give us money, give us money. I'm ready to show you we're doing the work. We're putting this together. But when you're in that crowdfunding mode, you're really trying to lay the groundwork. It's like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing, and we're going to eventually crowdfund this book, X, Y, and Z. Sometimes your mailing list don't like that. Other times they'll be okay with it, and other times they're going to be like, yeah, whatever. But it all comes back to that audience building and consistency. That was one of the key things that I always try to tell people. It's like, well, Joe, what's the one major thing that you have to do in this line of being a creator? Be consistent. Put out consistent good work. If you're going to do social media, you're going to do like live streams like this, be ready to do it each and every week. Don't do it 1 week, skip 2 weeks, then do it again, then wait another month and then do it again. No, you have to be consistent. Sadly enough, because I lost the other channel, I have had a good track record. I've been every Saturday. Now I have picked up Comic Book Spectrum as the producer for Comic Book Spectrum now. I picked up every Thursday now. It's hard to be consistent. But when you have to be consistent with other people, you have to, let people do what they need to do. That's why I kind of love Comic Book Spectrum, because of the simple fact that it's not just me. For the Desk of Small Press Publisher, I'm going to be consistent as hell. Because why? I like talking to you guys here. I love my chat. I love how my chat will interact with me. And that's the key thing. If there's no interaction, then how good is what you're putting out there? If people are not talking to you or bringing up points and stuff that you might want to think about, then you might be moving more towards that influencer role than what you think. But if people are debating you and people are bringing up points and sharing the merriment with you, you're really doing your job as far as the content is concerned. You got the engagement that you want. And that's the key thing. That's the reason why I like when Parallax comes in here. That's why I like when Aaron comes here. I like when, Queen Glamazonia and Crimson Ghost and whoever. And there's a lot of other people that I miss seeing on Saturdays. Speaking of which, shout outs to Clyde Hall, who used to come out here. Shout outs to oh my goodness, it's a whole bunch of people that I miss showing up here. But I understand life is what it is here. Yeah, we got Beanie and Lils, who the little ones who love the show here, and then we got Donna and Carl. And I know Donna and Carl is more, they more geared towards the Too Stupid O'Clock, because again, Stupid O'Clock is primarily dealing with HoloCon. They still are one of the sister shows, even though the Rising Tide Network is disbanded. We still got a lot of sister shows here from the Desk of Small Press Publisher, because Stupid O'Clock is still a sister show here. I still promote for them. Never Mind the Furthermore with Nicholas Tucker is still a sister show to this show, even though that's weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern. I ended up becoming the producer for Comic Book Spectrum, which is part of the Rising Tide now. And there was a whole bunch of other slew of shows here that, if they were still broadcasting, I would be talking about them. I mean, we had things like Drinking with the Davies and Truth Tellers and a couple others. So this has been kind of like, a big adventure in not just streaming, but just social media as a whole here, because one show does not make up a network. It's a bunch of shows that make up a network. However, it's about sharing the load and bringing the engagement here. Do I get upset that Stupid O'Clock runs into my show? No. Matter of fact, their show predates mine by, I think, a couple of years. But the thing about it is, when I went into doing 2 and 3 hour shows, it just happened to butt up against one another. So a lot of times, Donna and Carl would start watching mine and then take off and go over there. And because of now the schedule with Stupid O'Clock, and now they're taking bigger roles over there at Stupid O'Clock, they don't get to see my show that's often live, but they still watch on the reruns here. And that's the key thing about being honest with your audience here. When you have that engagement, you still want to still engage with the people who watch. That's the reason why I always stress that leave a comment. I will get to it. I will talk back to you. Whether we agree, disagree, or just, swap recipes or swap images of comic books or try to set up a trade of comic books, I will talk back to you. I'm not one of those people that, just ask you to comment and just never reply back. I do reply. I do read those read comments. I do read and respond back, because I do appreciate it. Because if you wasn't watching, if you wasn't commenting, that means I'm not doing my job. I'm not being entertaining enough. I'm not being informative enough. I'm not being engaging enough where you feel comfortable. And that's a slight on me. It was just like the other day, I believe I was telling Parallax the other day, I didn't realize that I carried Comic Book Spectrum for a full 2 hours after the fact that Elaine had to drop out 30 minutes in. Elaine wasn't feeling well, and we kept the show going. We kept the whole show going for 2 hours. And that 2 hours went through like that. And all we did was talk about movies and how we had all these different plot holes in movies that just ruined them. And it's a fun topic. Just like comic books to me is fun. What we talk about here, whether it be production, collecting, or what we like as far as stories is concerned, it is fun. We don't talk bad about people. If you don't like what I like, and I don't like what you like, my goal here is convince me more so of why you're a fan of it, to get me on your side. I never tell people it's like, oh, you're reading the wrong stuff, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no. If you love it, tell me why you love it. You might make me a fan of it, or might make me change my mind to give it a second look or give it a third look here. Yeah, that was the key thing. We all kept that what kept the conversation going, because we were up here trying our best not to go overboard about why it sucked, but we concentrated more on those plot points that just didn't make any sense in the movie, and all the cringy stuff that actually happened here. Now, I kind of wish that they was around today for we could go ahead and talk about a couple of other movies that were just that way too. Because a couple of other movies came to mind after talking about Wonder Woman 84. And it doesn't even have to be comic book related movies, to be quite honest, because we was talking about Shazam and Black Adam. And the whole thing about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson being the cause of the fact that we're not going to have a Shazam versus Black Adam movie. And it sucks. It really sucks that because a certain individual did not want to follow comic book canon, that's not going to happen. I'm glad that he manned up and admitted that it was a big mistake. after learning the fact about how canon that was. But it's just one of those things that just didn't make sense here. Just like, the last Superman movie. There was some good that was there, but it was a lot of bad. Was it an overall bad movie? Not, well, in my opinion, not per se. It wasn't something that I could be like, it's the greatest Superman movie ever, because again, the original Richard Donner Superman to me had everything that most comic book people would want in a Superman movie. In a way, the last Superman movie could have been a Justice League Year One or the Justice League Year One movie. That's what it could have been, or should have been. But no, it was kind of like a hybrid of all of these different stories mixed into one. Because to having the beginnings of what would have been a Justice League up under government control just didn't make any sense to me. And have that kind of intertwine between another Luthor Kal-El spat, it just didn't work. But the good thing that I liked about that was that we finally got a Metamorpho. They could do a Metamorpho movie and make it work. He was one of the more fun characters that was in there. I could say the same with Guy Gardner. But the character that stole the show in that Superman movie was Mr. Terrific. They won't do a Mr. Terrific movie as a whole because, again, the fan base would not be ready for it. But it is what it is. I understand that fans of Mr. Terrific kind of sort of understand that, but doesn't understand why the fan base is not there for it, especially if you're a fan of DC Comics. It's just the nature of things here. The movie-going audience, I believe, is not going to be ready for it. Just like the movie-going audience was not ready for Jaime Reyes' Blue Beetle. Now, I still got to watch that movie. I'm going to eventually watch Blue Beetle and have my own opinion of it. I know a lot of people kept saying it sucks, this, that, the other, but then again, movies that came out during the pandemic really didn't get a true fair shot of real suckitude. I still feel the whole reason why we don't have what's her name, Scarlett Johansson being Natasha Romanoff anymore, aka Black Widow, is because of what happened during the pandemic with the Black Widow movie, the original Black Widow movie. Was it good enough to be in theaters? I don't know. The fact that it moved to streaming the way that it did, which cut off her possible payday, that was a bit unscrupulous and a little bit unethical on the company's part. Did we end up losing a good actress for that role? Yes. But it did open up the role for the actress that played her supposed little sister to take the reins. She has been doing a great job here. Now, did I like Thunderbolts? Not so much. Not so much. It has so much potential, but they dropped the ball. The movie that I watched, being the comic book fan that I am, was not Thunderbolts. But it was something that, again, those marketeers was like, it hit these check marks. Let's go ahead and do it. And we get what we got. It was misbranded because the characters that they used to call them the Thunderbolts were not the Thunderbolts that was in the comic books. Therefore, if people did like the Thunderbolts, who are moviegoers, who are not comic book fans, decide I want to go read the source material. It goes into a comic book store, and guess what? They're going to have that rude awakening and say, "Oh, the Thunderbolts that we saw on the screen are not the Thunderbolts that's in the comic books. Sorry. We're about to read all these other stories about all these other characters that were not on the screen." If anything, the best that can be done for those people who were loving the movie but not comic book fans is that there's enough out there for people to go back and read Century. Should the movie should have been called Century? Yeah, that's what that movie should have called. They should have called the movie, Century, the beginnings of the new Thunderbolts, the beginnings of the new Avengers. That's what the movie should have been called. Because again, the whole movie focused around the one person that eventually got powers that was equivalent to being a god and whatnot. And there is a Century character that is pretty much emulated like that. Yeah, the Rise of Century. The Rise of Century, the beginnings of the new Avengers. That title would have worked for that movie and people would have been happy, and there would have been an easier transition for the movie going audience to become comic book fans because they could go back and read the more recent incarnation of Century that happened in the 2000s and know more about the character. It would have made an easier transition, but nope. We're going to use a franchise that has no characters up in it. Hope that the market share will love it, and then try to come back to somewhat of a source material, or we're going to rush and create brand new source material based upon the movie. And I hate that logic about, oh, we're just going to go and create brand new source material just because of the movie. Should be the other way around. You're using a brand title. Forgive my wording. A branded title, not a title brand, a branded title such as Thunderbolt, which already had a team here. You cannot, I won't say you cannot have lightning strike twice, but they got lucky with Guardians of the Galaxy. Because when I heard about Guardians of the Galaxy coming out and I heard about the team that they was using, the first thing that came out of my mouth is like, why didn't they just call it the Infinity Watch? It would be the Infinity Watch minus Warlock. But no, they called them Guardians of the Galaxy. And the only saving grace that was there is that Yondu was in the movie, because Yondu was always been a member of Guardians, but they didn't even make him a true member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. They just pretty much like, oh yeah, I just raised Quill. Destroying the source material, the original source material, taking what they want from it, they create something else. They end up getting lightning in a bottle. The lightning in a bottle became so great and people wanted more that they end up creating the mythos based upon the movie. So all the Guardians of the Galaxy books that came before the movie, people may not go back and read because it's a completely different team. They only know based upon the movie. And that was done out of convenience. Now, was it the smart thing to do in that instance because of the popularity of Guardians? Yeah, it was a little bit smarter. And I ain't going to kid you. It was smart business-wise. Once they saw that people love Rocket and Groot, there was Rocket and Groot stuff everywhere. Rocket and Groot had their own comic book series. Rocket people went back and bought the old Rocket Raccoon comic books. People went back to try to find, the origin of Groot. And again, that origin of Groot book skyrocketed. Now it has leveled back out again, but it skyrocketed more. The more people fell in love with Groot, the more it skyrocketed. That's one of the things that I kind of like about Jeff the Land Shark. I like people. I like people and the fact that Jeff is slowly skyrocketing. He's becoming a more popular character. Now, will it level out soon? Probably so. Because Jeff has not made any other appearances yet in other mediums to keep himself in the mainstream audience. And when I say the mainstream audience, I'm talking about people who are outside of comic book. And when I say comic book, people who are not people who are reading comic books knows about Jeff the Land Shark. But does that 5-year-old who watched cartoons know about Jeff the Land Shark? Who doesn't read comics? Probably not. And I know how Paralyzed say, but if they play the game Marvel Rivals, they would know who Jeff the Land Shark is. It's like, yeah, he's in video games. But video game players does not necessarily go and read comic books. It might be the entry gateway for them to start, but they need to be hitting a lot stronger and harder with a lot of this type of stuff to keep people aware of it. But it just is what it is, how it is. You can't make everybody into a comic book reader. And it's just the nature of the fact of the matter here. That's why one of the reasons why I hate when people speculate that a show is optioned. It's like this comic book is now optioned to become a TV show or a movie. So what? That should not make the speculation on the comics go up, because there is no guarantee that TV watcher or that movie goer is going to become a comic book reader. I said that once, and I'm going to keep saying it for umpteen thousand times. Unless there is an easy transition back, and the fandom and the ravenousness of that moviegoer or that television viewer is of such, then it might happen. But it's not going to happen automatically because a television show has been optioned, or a movie has been optioned, or the movie comes out. Again, we have seen so many movies come out where people are up here. It's like, oh, we're going to expect Green Lantern, and the Green Lantern movie tanks. Matter of fact, now you guys making me think about Tron. There's a new Tron movie out. It doesn't necessarily mean that all the little bit of Tron comic books that we did get is going to skyrocket. In my understanding of the new Tron movie, this is moving the bar. This is moving the franchise forward. Meaning that Tron Legacy wasn't truly the end. And I'm actually was, after seeing the trailer, I was like, yeah, this was kind of like the warning that was actually happening. But then again, I don't know how they're going to do what they're going to do, because if you remember at the end of Tron Legacy, Flynn's son brought that one construct out into the real world with him. Now, since the MCP, I shouldn't say the MCP. Now the mainframe where the MCP used to reside on, where Zark, no, not Zark. Shoot, what was Flynn's other program that he had? It wasn't Zark. Zark was in the original one that was done by the guy that stole his copyrights and everything for Space Paranoid. It was the one program that he used that he was searching the whole mainframe to get to the point where he could rat on the guy to say that he stole his copyright. The name of that program took over. And then it turns out that that program ended up creating another one, and he gets out. And not did he get out, he got out and brought an army with him. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting Tron movie, but it's not going to feel like Tron. It's really not going to feel like Tron per se. Because Bruce Boxleitner's character in the original movie was the original person that created Tron, and I believe Tron eventually ended up derezzing himself at the end of Tron Legacy. And then Flynn was left inside of a empty mainframe, getting his son and that other construct out. But you know, both movies have been out long enough where that's not really a big spoiler per se. But anyway, long story short, we get in a brand new Tron movie. Just like I was somewhat in mixed opinion seeing that the new incarnation of The Running Man was second in the box office last week on its release, which is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, because the good thing about it is that this version of The Running Man is more akin to the novel. The bad thing about it is that it didn't go to number one, so that tells me not everybody is planning to go see it because they're still enamored with the Arnold Schwarzenegger version, knowing good and well that the Arnold Schwarzenegger version did not follow the source material verbatim. There was a lot of differences. However, this one is actually making the attempt to be closer to the Stephen King novel. The Ben Richards that we got is more or less the everyman that was mentioned in the books. They're going the full 30 days. They're really doing the novel justice this time around. But also at the same time, we also have to take a look at when the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie came out of Running Man, what they were doing and how they were doing it, and because of the technology that was out back then, it was easier to do a lot of this stuff as far as the overall quote unquote television reality show, game show type stuff in that format back then than what they can do now. But also at the same time, if you paid attention to history, it was also the reason why The Running Man came after Predator, is because both movies were about to come out at the same time. And they did not want Arnold Schwarzenegger to have competition of another movie with him in it. So the studio that produced The Running Man pushed back the opening day for Running Man 2 months. That is actual history. You can look that up. Originally, they were going to have Predator go up against The Running Man at the box office. And it was a scary thing. It was a scary thing because they were up here saying, it's like, how can they show two Schwarzenegger movies released in the same month? It doesn't make any sense. Schwarzenegger versus himself in the box office. Who would have thought back then that possibly could happen? But it didn't. It didn't. They pushed back The Running Man box office release a couple of months. So Predator had its run for at least 2 to 3 months, and then Running Man came out. Well, guys, that's pretty much it for tonight, unless you guys got other stuff that you guys want to talk about. At least this way, I could give back the people on the East Coast at least 25 minutes of their Saturday back. That way they don't have to be in the future when we end tonight here. And the rest of us could go and enjoy our Saturdays here. Yeah, I know one thing. I'm probably going to end up finish watching season 2 of Squid Games: The Challenge. Let's see. Now, they're up here talking about Marvel Rivals, Marvel Rivals now. I will jump back out there for Marvel Rivals here in a few minutes here. But at least that way, people will have their Saturday back here. I want you guys to enjoy the rest of the Saturday here. Next week, yeah, Jeff is overpowered. Jeff the Land Shark people, or as I call him, Jeff the Killing Machine. Why? Because he's a healer / killer. But anyway, next week we're going to be talking about, what happened over Thanksgiving, the fact that it is a good time to invest in the local businesses and the smaller businesses. Think about companies like CGC Studios and other brick and mortar stores around your local neighborhood, because this is the perfect time for them to, perfect time for you to help them out by giving them sales here, especially around Christmas time. You could find good deals during this time. You could find good Christmas presents during this time too, because the small businesses need the same type of love as the big box stores here. But we'll talk about more of that later next week here. As always, live life, grow, and be well. And we are out of here for another Saturday. I will see you after Thanksgiving. Enjoy all the turkey that you want. And then on holiday, have a great turkey sandwich or a turkey salad. And then after that, we're going to get filled up on our fill of comic book reading and a couple other things that may have come across this particular desk here as far as comic book production is concerned, or investments, or just general comic book collecting attitude as a whole here. So until then, good night, be well, and we are out of here.